Hi, everyone. Matt Clark, research analyst here with Money and Markets with your weekly marijuana market update. Now, before I get started, like I usually do, I want to tell you that whenever this video is done, I encourage you to head over to moneyandmarkets.com. That's where we provide safe and sound, profitable investment information for you each and every day of the week. Myself, Chief Investment Strategist Adam O'Dell, as well as Green Zone Fortunes Editor Charles Sizemore, we all contribute on a regular basis, and it's meant to provide you safe, profitable information for your portfolio. You can sign up for our free e-letter, which comes out 7 days a week and gives you 2 to 3 stories every day that you can use to help build up your portfolio, build up your investment strategy, and really build things out completely. Just head over to moneymarkets.com. Make sure you sign up for that free daily e-letter and get started on the road to safe and profitable investing. Now, today, I love getting reader questions, reader feedback, and we get it all the time, and it's absolutely fantastic what you guys say about the service, about the videos, about me, about the recommendations. I absolutely love it. Whether you agree with me or disagree with me, it doesn't make a difference. I enjoy just getting the feedback and reading what everyone has to say. Now, this particular today for this update, I do want to talk about a question I received from Vincent A on YouTube, and he wrote, "Hey Matt. Thanks for all the marijuana market updates. Would like to hear what you think about Cannabix Tech. Just recently got a U.S. patent for a THC breathalyzer. Couldn't find much recent financials, but wondering what your thoughts are. I couldn't find any other publicly traded company that makes a THC breathalyzer. And with more states legalizing for recreational use, I think this might be a good long-term option. Thanks." Well, first off, Vincent, thank you for your comments and your questions. I really appreciate that. You guys are the reason why we do this, is just to provide you with a little bit more analysis in terms of cannabis-related stocks. It's not easy to find, but and then provide you with actionable information. What you do with it, entirely up to you. But I want to try to provide you with very middle of the road, straight line, and no bull. No, just cut to the chase and tell you what it is, give you the info, and then what you do with it, entirely up to you. Now, I'll start with a little bit of background on the company, and then I'll look at its stock performance. Cannabix Technologies Incorporated trades over the counter on the pink sheets under BLOZF, and it also trades on the Canadian National Stock Exchange. It is a Canadian company. So it's not on the NASDAQ or on the New York Stock Exchange. It is over the counter. It is on the pink sheets. But it's not a company that cultivates or sells marijuana. So it's not your typical marijuana company. It's a company that's in the market of creating tools for law enforcement and employers to test the presence of THC on an individual. And Vincent is correct. The company did just receive a patent for a cannabis drug detection device. It's a patent the company's been working on since 2014. It recently just got it just 2 weeks ago. Now, the actual breathalyzer has already been produced and is in field testing with an occupational health clinic in Southern California. It works the same way an alcohol breathalyzer does. Law enforcement, if you are at a traffic stop or maybe in an accident and there's a question about your impairedness, then they break out a little device, you breathe into it, and then instantaneously it tells you what your blood alcohol level, or how much alcohol is in your blood. And every state has different legal limits. If you are over that legal limit, then you can be arrested for driving under the influence. The THC breathalyzer works the exact same way. You breathe into it, and it's meant to register the amount of THC you have in your system. Whenever legal limits are established, if they haven't been already, then you can determine whether you're driving under the influence or operating a vehicle under the influence or showing up to work under the influence or whatever have you. Now, so it just works the same way as an alcohol breathalyzer. And it's supposed to reduce the THC identification process from what is now days, sometimes hours, into seconds and minutes. As of August, the company said the results from its breathalyzer takes less than 5 minutes to obtain. And Cannabix officials said they're continuing to work on scaling down the current device. It is a pretty good size one. It's more that the ones that the police use for alcohol are very small rectangles and with a little tube on the end that you blow into. This is actually a bit bigger. It's not huge, but it's not necessarily compact. And they're working on trying to decrease the production costs of that device. All in all, achieving the patent is really pretty big news for the company, as now it's kind of in the driver's seat to develop this kind of technology ongoing. Now, in terms of the company's stock, it was trading at a range of around 27 cents to 30 cents a share for most of the last 12 months. It ticked up to about 66 cents a share in December. That's likely a response to the current U.S. political situation involving Democrats controlling the House, the Senate, and the White House. Now, as I've said before, investors are of the belief that with Democrats in control of all three of those entities, that federal decriminalization of cannabis is closer to reality, thus pushing cannabis stocks up. We saw it with even our Cannabis Watchlist holdings, which I'll talk more about later, that they pushed very high after the election, and then after January, when the Georgia election finally it gave control of the Senate to the Democrats. Now, Cannabix got its big boost when news of its patent award became public earlier this month. As you can see with the chart here, the stock price vaulted to more than $1.79 a share. That's a 616% jump from March 2020's low of 25 cents a share. That's a massive jump. Now, the stock price hit a golden cross. That's where the 50-day moving average crossed above the 200-day moving average back in December of 2020. That golden cross indicates a potential uptrend could be in the offing. But in this instance, it's more likely the patent drove the stock higher, not the pattern. So just be aware of that, news does dictate stock price. And in this instance, that's exactly what happened. It wasn't because the technicals showed that it was time for the stock to start moving in an uptrend. And finally, Vincent is also correct, financially rather. He is correct. There is very little, and I mean very little, financial information available on this company. What I could find is that the company doesn't carry any debt, but it also hasn't mass produced its breathalyzer yet, so there's very little reason to have any. It's basically raising funds to pay for R&D. It's not taking out any debt because it has no need to. And it doesn't have any cash flow either, again, because it hasn't sold anything. So right now, its financials are pretty much on level term. It's raising funds and then investing those funds into its research and development. When it starts mass producing, then you might start seeing this company start taking on some debt and even start generating some sales. Once that becomes to fruition, that's when the balance sheet will start to expand, and you'll start seeing, hopefully, what the company would hope for would be a balance, if not a tip, to the cash side, to the good. Now, overall, this company is a little tricky for me in terms of investing. There's another company out there called Hound Labs. It started on-site testing of its own marijuana breathalyzer, and the news of this online field test just came days after Cannabix announced its patent award, so I'm sure there was no surprise there. Hound Labs is a private company, so you can't invest in it the same way you can with Cannabix. Now, for Cannabix, I would issue some caution. Realize that they're not the only player in the game here. It just happens to be they're the only player that you can actually invest in. It's not an expensive stock, even with the run-up. I mean, $1.79 still is fairly cheap. It's not bad. But if that momentum isn't sustained, a pullback could lead to triple-digit losses. You saw the stock go up 600%. If their uptrend isn't confirmed or isn't sustained, it can drop right back down to that 25, 27, 30-cent level. That's a massive loss. So you have to really put all that in perspective. Until they start marketing and putting out a product to sell, it's going to be very difficult to gauge whether this stock is something to really invest in at this point, at least to me, and at least in the cannabis industry. R&D companies are great, but there's always caution that you have to kind of you have to factor in here whenever you're investing. So I would say it's kind of buyer beware here. Understand that it's an R&D company. There are no sales. There's no debt. That's great, but there's no income either. So, it's just very, very tricky. Getting in now on the ground level, if that's your strategy, that might not be a bad idea, because if they start mass producing and start really building up production of this THC breathalyzer and start building up sales, especially in the law enforcement community, where in states where adult use and medical use is legal, well, that could be a huge boom for the company. And that could be a huge boom for the stock price. Is it going to happen? I'm not a soothsayer. I don't know. I mean, the run-up is again because of the patent, not necessarily because of it has a massive new product on hand. Because it's now taken a step closer to the potential of creating a patented product that they can put on the market and sell commercially. Now, I want to look at our Cannabis Watchlist on Money and Markets. Our watch list continues to perform well. Average gain of our 6 positions is at 34%. But again, you have to understand, if you've been paying attention, you'll see that the broader cannabis market has been hit with some pressure, and that has pushed some of our stocks down slightly. Nothing to be alarmed at, but it's just something you need to be aware of. So Schweitzer Mounted International, it's up about close to 30%. It was up as high as 40%. It's pared back. Perkin-Elmer, this is actually a company that's actually increased over time rather than been suffered by the pullback, and that's because it's a little more diversified outside of cannabis. It's up about 28% since I recommended it, since I put it on the watch list in September. Turning Point Brands, this is another traditional tobacco company like Schweitzer Mounted. It's up more than 65%. Grow Generation, this was our top performer. It has pared back a little bit. It's still up 61% since I put it on the watch list in November. I think it still has room to grow. I think this is just a pullback. I think it's temporary. and I don't think it's going to last too long. I think once we start hearing more cannabis in the news, then I think you're going to start seeing more cannabis stock prices jump. Planet 13 Holdings, this is the most recent addition to the watch list. It has struggled. Not going to kid around. It's down about 11% since I added it, and that's again because of headwinds that the cannabis industry is facing. They got a nice run after the election, both in November and then again in January. Now they're starting to pull back a little bit. I still think there's a lot of potential long-term for Planet 13. I don't think it's one that it's not time to sell. It's not time to get rid of it if you do own it. Just be steady, stay the course, and I think you'll be just fine. Scott's Miracle-Gro, again, to illustrate how stocks fluctuate, when I added this to the watch list in September, it dropped about 10, 11%. It is now up 34% since I recommended that price. So it's at about a 44, 45% swing in price since I added it. So again, it just goes to show you that, not everything stays the same, and you just have to, monitor your strategy and stick to your strategy, which is what we do here at Money Markets with the cannabis, with the marijuana market update. So just hold to it. You'll be fine. I'm going to keep watching things for you. If there is an instance where I think that it's time maybe to back out of a position that you may have bought based on the watch list, I'll let you know, and I'll be the first to tell you. I'll put out a video and let you know immediately when that should happen. Now, you can check out my cannabis watch list on moneymarkets.com. But there is one more thing I do want to address. And this is something that is not personal, but it is something I do take very seriously. I'm all about being transparent. I try to give you all the information that I have afforded to me as a research analyst. And sometimes that information that I see and that I get access to isn't necessarily correct. Now, last week I answered a question about Charlotte's Web Holdings Incorporated, and the information I told you about the company's debt that I found from research from research that I looked for was actually not accurate. However, you have to bear in mind that's not the reason why I told you that Charlotte's Web is not a buy. I told you that Charlotte's Web is not a buy because it has no stock momentum and it's got very high volatility. And it's just not one that I'd want to take a risk on right now. Does it have potential? Of course, they all do. But my reasoning was not because of its debt. My reasoning was because of its stock performance. But again, I want to be very open. I want to be very honest with you and tell you that this was incorrect, and explain to you why. So, that all aside, it's a lesson learned. But again, next week, I'm going to talk about another cannabis stock that's been mentioned in our YouTube comments or email. You can comment on our YouTube section right below. Email me at feedback@moneymarkets.com and let me know maybe if there's a sector or a stock you'd like me to take a look at. Would love to do that. Coming up later this week, we'll have the Bull and the Bear podcast as well as our Money Markets Week Ahead. I'm going to give you a little bit of a sneak preview. Next week's marijuana market update, I'm actually going to have a cannabis insider on, and we're going to talk about the market. So make sure you stay tuned for that. I'm going to have that for you next week. Check out moneymarkets.com each and every day for all the new content that we put up that provides safe and profitable information for your portfolio. I'm Matt Clark, research analyst for Money and Markets and host of the Bull and Bear podcast. Until next time, everyone, safe trading.